Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live question and answer session, a part of our Back to School series. Over the last 2.5 years, the pandemic has turned our worlds upside down and changed the way we live and learn. But with the world finally settling down and limping back to life, and with preschools and schools opening up across the country, as parents, we are often faced with a lot of questions around the transition of our child into school after such a long break. This question and answer session will help address most of those questions and put our fears and apprehensions to rest. And who better to do that than our team of curriculum and early years experts? Before we start, let me introduce you to our panel. First up, we have Seema Varma, a professionally qualified educator with over 28 years of experience in teaching, education, administration, and entrepreneurship. Seema is the regional curriculum manager for NCR and takes care of curriculum design at Klay. She has collaborated with international research labs like Johns Hopkins School of Education to develop teacher training programs for early years rooted in research and practical experience. Hi Seema, it's good to have you here on today's panel.
Thank you so much, Divya. It's a pleasure to be here, to be addressing the parents, dear parents, and answering some of the very relevant and critical questions. Thank you.
Joining Seema is Parvani Dawar. Parvani is a passionate early years educator with over 2 decades of experience in the field of early years education. A Level 3 certified educator from the British Council of Awards for Care, Health and Education. Parvani is also the Karnataka Territory Head of Early Childhood Association India. At Klay, she contributes towards curriculum development. Hi Parvani.
Hi Divya, it's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me. Hi
Welcome
Seema.
both of you to this very exciting session. Now, the pandemic has set back the learning of so many of our children, and many of them have either been out of a formal structured learning program, or have been on a learning break, or have taken breaks between two learning programs. A question in the minds of many parents, and especially those who have children in the age group of 3 to 5 years, would be whether they should directly enroll their child for a mainstream school or should they look out for a preschool. And Padmini, I'd like to ask you that question. As an early educator, what would your advice be to parents like these?
Sure, Divya, thank you. Well, it is a very important decision. I understand that for parents, this decision will impact their child's learning journey. So, indeed, they should weigh the possibilities, the opportunities, the options they have. But I would advise that please keep your child at the center of the decision making. My recommendation would be that for children between 3 to 5 years, it's advisable, it's most suited to start small. We shouldn't be daunting our children, we shouldn't get them overwhelmed. So, here's how I would prefer and I would recommend an early years, a preschool setting more than a K-12 school setting. Firstly, because the child-led pedagogy is it directs towards a particular type of learner. So, when I say pedagogy, what is pedagogy? Pedagogy are the methods in which you teach and learn. So, a preschool setting is governed by specific best practices from early childhood education, theories of child development, and that is what governs their curriculum as well. Next. Now, when I say the curriculum is governed by the best practices, they are mapped to the learning, the developmentally appropriate learning milestones, which we all know that, for children between 3 to 5, it changes rapidly. So the curriculum that is transacted should map and meet those frequently changing needs of our children. The pedagogy, the curriculum then leads to the holistic development of your child. Now, when I say holistic development, it is not about literacy and numeracy. Preschool or the early years are about learning to learn, so there are other subjects which your children will learn, and now is the time to hone the skills or acquire the skills which will help your child learn those subjects. So, something as simple as comprehending instructions, something as simple as being able to think, or, other executive functions as well. How does the pedagogy, the curriculum, the holistic development take place in a preschool setting? How will you deliver that? Well, for your child, it happens with smaller class strengths. There are more opportunities. The engagement opportunities for your child are meaningful here. Why? Because when your child is involved in an activity, there is more time, there is enough time rather to spend on that activity. There is a scope to come back to that particular task, game, activity, or simply just toying around with the resources kept. How do you achieve that? Through a adult child ratio, which is the most appropriate and apt. When I say the adult over here, it's a teacher, it's another support teacher, then there are nannies over there when your child is supported and cared for. All this further leads to better peer interaction. Now, by peer interaction, it is just right enough that your child doesn't get overwhelmed by the number of children in the class, and just get lost, and suddenly he finds a room full of children where in the early months he was hardly seeing any, but just enough that the child doesn't get overwhelmed, at the same time gets enough chances, opportunities to interact, not only in terms of being able to perform tasks, but also in simple gestures like sharing, taking turns. Cohesively, this all leads to developing a confident child. When your child is feeling secure and safe, and there's a sense of belongingness, the confidence of a child rises, and only then the learning will take place. Unless that is achieved, it is difficult for a child to even think about learning or to acquire any kind of learning. Other than that, the safety measures which are present in the current situation, the protocols that have to be adhered to is not only in terms of sanitization, okay, sanitizing, it's also in terms of frequent hand wash. Okay, the toilet routines which your children will follow in a preschool setting, they are more close and more personal. Those experiences are more close and personal, and of course, uh, the adult who's involved there has chances to be more vigilant over there. Finally, there are opportunities for us as educators, as parents, to be able to connect and meet on a platform like this, and have a heart to heart conversation, find out what is the best we can do, because again, parent and you as parents and we as educators have to kind of join hands so that the child can thrive, and it'll help you to have access to a number of resources, helplines, direct conversations, which probably as parents you may not have other platforms to share at. Lastly, it is a community, so we as a community build ourselves together, we grow and learn together. uh, I would request Seema here, because since Seema has worked with a lot of mainstream schools, why don't you add to this, Seema?
Thanks, Parvani. I think you've kind of encapsulated beautifully all the points. Why a preschool environment? So I'm, hearing you share about all the relevant pointers, I'm reminded of an African proverb. It takes a village to raise a child. So the preschool environment, if I would compare it, is a community of committed educators, carers coming together to create that wonderful ecosystem where every child thrives, every child blooms, and there is enough scope for children to realize their optimal potential, to bloom, and in an ecosystem of diversity as well as novelty, because everything that is here in preschool is very child centric, and addresses the need of that individual child. So children as part of a whole group also learn to grow, and the uniqueness of every child is celebrated and acknowledged. So it's a wonderful explanation that you shared, Parvani.
This is so true, Seema and Parvani. I mean, starting small always helps, especially when it comes to the confidence of a child, rather than throwing them into a larger environment where 30 to 40 of them are competing against each other for the attention of the teacher. But irrespective of the kind of school that a parent may choose, children have been out of school for a really long time, and with no kind of formal evaluation system that typically happens when a child is in school, how then can parents know if their child is ready for school? Is there sort of like a checklist of social, emotional, cognitive milestones that parents can keep track of? And Seema, I'd like to address this question to you.
Sure, sure. So, Divya, one of the things that we have to realize is, as parents and as early years educators and caregivers, is something that 2 years have happened in our lives and in the lives of children, right? So, this is an opportunity to flatten the curve, the learning curve, wherein, bringing children back from their home environment back into school. Now, back into school sounds very imposing for parents and for children who are 2 year old or 3 year old and who have never probably had a very, very limited exposure to the outside world. So, how do they find the confidence? How do they find the skills to be able to navigate themselves independently when they move into the outer world and when they move into a formal environment? So that is where the physical, personal, social, and emotional aspect of nurturing of a child comes into being. So when we talk about the physical, personal, social, emotional, it is nothing but the way the child develops and grows into a very healthy and confident being. And for that, when we focus on physical skills, which are the gross motor, fine motor, learning to be resilient, taking on new challenges, when we look at the personal skills, the self-help skills, whether the child is able to feed himself, himself or herself, whether the child is able to, accomplish small tasks that are given at home, whether the child is able to engage himself or herself with all the resources or the environment that is provided, whether the child is able to follow instructions or understand what is the routine of the day, whether the child is able to articulate, express, manage the feelings that are there. Because children are still finding language as a medium of communication. So it starts normally with sounds and then two-letter words and then three-letter words. And sometimes, because of limited exposure, children find it a little harder to communicate. And on top of it, there is stranger anxiety, there is anxiety of a new environment, new toys, new visual. So there is a sensory explosion that is going to happen. So how do we get children to adapt with ease into the new environment? So for that, it is there are some of the things that, as parents we can do. We can get used to the new learning in many ways. First of all, as a family, all of us need to buy into the fact that there are going to be changes and my child is going to go to a new environment and I need to prepare my child. Now, that would mean working our own schedules, working the schedule of a child, getting the child ready, getting the child fall into a kind of routine, ensuring that the child is sleeping on time, child is well fed on time, and if there is screen time, then that screen time needs to be controlled and it needs to be converted from passive to active. When I say passive to active, if a child is watching a recorded session, definitely the parent should be sitting there, and post that the parent should indulge and engage with the child in a conversation that talks about what the child has seen, what are some of the characters, what is the learning, what excited the child, what is something that the child liked. So that way we convert the, you know passive screen time into active screen time, and ensuring that a child sleeps on time and gets up on time. So, some of the routines that we need to start to get children ready for school and to have them emotionally, resilient to be able to articulate these feelings is to start early at home and talk amongst each other and express our feelings and find out what is happening to them and what they are feeling, how they are able to address their needs, how they are able to talk to each other. So, these are some of the very, very critical elements that are important to establish, the adaptation with ease is something I would say. So for here, parents' role is very, very critical, because as primary caregivers, they know their children best. All of us, are totally cued into each and every need of our child. We know what my child needs when. And we also fear the new environment, whether that environment would address the need of my child, whether my child will be comfortable, whether I will be able to trust. So that trust building has to start from home, where we prepare our children for this transition slowly and slowly, one step at a time. Not look at perfection, but look at progress, and be kind to ourselves and be kind to our children. Because, as partners in early years, we are there to support your children. So it is not that a child has to come to the formal school as a perfect child who's like toilet trained and who knows how to eat and who's able to accomplish everything. We are there for you, right? So we are all right as long as you're there with us and you're there to support with us on this journey. Then we will be doing fine and our children will be blooming. Parvani, would you like to add something to this?
Well, no, Seema, I think you've covered everything just right. It's just that I'd like to say that while you are aware of all these things, please don't miss the joy of parenting, and remember that your toddler or your kindergartner is, they'll grow up at the blink of an eye, and take it from the mother of a teenager, a teenager, that you will miss this time with your child and enjoy the childhood, as well as enjoy being that the parenting or being that parent at this time. So just make the most of it as well.
Yeah, that is so true. In fact, as a mom of a 10-year-old, I mean, I don't know where those 10 years went by, and before, like, I could even blink, it was over. So I wish I could get back those times. And I'm having, and what, adding on to what Seema said, I mean, a lot of parents keep stressing on academic excellence, but I think holistic development of a child is equally, if not more, important. Now, with the new academic year just around the corner, what can parents do to ensure a positive start? How do parents work with children to get them ready? I mean, to get ready for the school year. And Parvani, if you could help answer this question for us.
Sure, thank you, Divya. So, I would say that it's good to prepare yourself and your child. Uh, Routines, like Seema said, she just mentioned that how important it is for children to have routines. Children thrive on routines. So I would say that you start from there. Firstly, establish a bedtime, meal time, and even routines where you can regulate the screen time. Why is that important? Because this will also in turn regulate your child's bowel movements, and that is very important once your child steps out. Again, once your child is comfortable, the acceptance or the adjustment in the school doesn't get cranky. These things are easy on your child. Secondly, like I said, involve your child in making the preparations. Which school bag would you like to carry? Which bottle would you like to take? Let's select your tiffin box. And what would you like to carry on the first day? So start all these kind of conversations a good 10-15 days ahead of the start of the school day. If you feel that your child is anxious, which many children may be, then just to make them feel better and comfortable, you can encourage them to probably carry a toy or a napkin or a book, which whatever which makes your child feel comfortable, just to feel the presence of home when they step out. Another thing you can consider very important is please connect with the teacher. Talk to the teacher and tell the teacher about your child, how your child has spent the last 2 years, what was your any specifics about the qualities, behavior, specific requirements of your child, what makes him or her happy. Share everything with your teacher. Don't hesitate. This will only enable her to make your child comfortable in the school. Lastly, I would say that don't expect too much on the first day of school. So when you're dropping off your child or something, don't expect him or her to just smile away and leave you and walk off. Try to establish some kind of a bye-bye routine. Have a song or some kind of a gesture, a high five or something like that. That'll also be something which your child can look forward to. And overall, I would say, just welcome and be forthcoming about this new step your child is going to take in the learning journey.
Thanks, Parvani. And as a continuation to the same question, There are a lot of parents who are equally anxious of sending their child back to school. In fact, a lot of them will be sending their child for the very first time. Are there any tips for parents on how they can emotionally prepare themselves for the new school year? And Seema, I mean, why don't you take this question up?
So, while everybody talks about separation anxiety in children, I would talk a little bit about separation anxiety in parents because, children pick up cues from parents. So, it is very, very important that all of us parents, stay calm and stay positive about this new opportunity, learning opportunity that we are providing our children with. And that starts with us. So, like Parvani was sharing, please connect with your school, get to know your school, get to know the team, build your confidence and rapport there. Because when you are confident and when you are trusting, the child will automatically trust the new environment. Because for us, children are absolutely new, and as a team, we are going to depend on you for everything in the first couple of days, because you will be a go to person, whether the child, what kind of toy the child plays with, what kind of snacks the child needs to eat, what are some of the activities, and if a child is throwing a tantrum or if a child is a little anxious, how do we calm them, how do we soothe them. So for everything you will be a go to person, and that can only happen if we can build a relationship of trust and equal communication, so that we share with each other everything that is happening in our children's lives in the first couple of days, till they adapt with ease to the new environment, till they connect with the new caregivers. And then there is no looking back. There will come a day where you will, as parents, and I have experienced this, where our child will not even look back when we say bye to them in couple of days. And that is the time it hits us that our children are absolutely confident and ready to take on the new world with the new challenges. So yes, it is very, very important. And one very important aspect is, we talk about managing the energy of children. We talk about getting them to sleep on time, to eat on time. Please do that yourself, because these this new environment and this new change is not just in your child's life, it is as a in the family as a whole. So there will be encroachment on your time, there will be encroachment on your energy, there will be encroachment on your schedules, because this would require a bit of your time. You're rewiring your priorities to a little bit, to some extent. So please be prepared for that. Please be prepared for that my child may not settle. I had thought my child is very extrovert, and my child was so excited on day one, and suddenly after 2 days, my child is saying, I don't want to go to school. My child is probably getting up at night and crying because my child does not want to go to school. Please be flexible, but let's be consistent with the routine, because children thrive on routine. It is all right if the child is unwell not to get them, because we don't want to expose other children, and we have to be very cautious, especially during these times. But yes, it is also very, very important to maintain that kind of healthy routine, and to work with children and talk about everything positive that is happening in school. The conversations that we happen with which we engage with children in the first few days are very, very important in helping them to settle. Talk about their friends, talk about the new environment, the toys, the classrooms, the boards, the activities that they are doing, the books that they have been reading, probably, the storytelling session or the puppet session that has happened, all the music and movement, the rhymes. Try and learn the rhymes so that you can sing, you can get wacky at home, drop everything. Probably if you're folding clothes or doing chores, just take a pause of 5 minutes and get into a dance, a music and movement with your children, singing their favorite rhyme. You are going to be that conduit that's going to connect the home and school. So that connection is very, very important. And yes, do take out time to, at the end of the day, to connect with the teachers, and the team is always ready to connect. The team will come back to you and talk to you about how the day has been, what can be done, and what worked well, what did not work well, and how we are planning as a team, to take the next couple of days forward. And there is another thing that I wanted to share with all of you. With our centers opening pan India at most of the metros, we have captured some of the moments that are so priceless. And when I say priceless, you can imagine after 2 years of a long wait, we have welcomed children, and children have also welcomed us, mutually. And we've had such cherished moments that we brought together in a small slide for you. And Divya, I would request you to please share this slide.
It was so lovely to see, and it's amazing to see how fast the children have settled down in the classrooms. We have a lot of questions pouring in from our parents, and in interest of time, I'm going to read out a couple of them. Um, First of all, one question, Parvani, for you. If And a lot of parents have asked this, if the child has missed out on an entire school year, is it wise to repeat that year in physical school again?
Yes, Divya, I would highly recommend that because the experience a child would get in that environment, it will cater to the gap, the learning gap that has risen because of the miss. So it's better to have a repetition. Uh, Again, don't think that age-wise your child will be younger to the group or something like that. Don't keep that in mind because at the end of the day, you don't want to stress your child about the learning process. You don't want your child to feel not knowing things, because internally children feel that, oh, in a group setting, in a classroom, if the other children are able to do something and one child is not, then they do feel at heart that there is a lack of confidence, and this, it hits them for a longer time. It's not that it's in the moment and it's just over. So it's always a good idea to have them do this, the physical school one more time.
Okay, a couple of parents have been asking about basically, since children have been, and especially pandemic babies who are not used to having other adults or other children around them, how would Klay help in getting that, overcoming that fear and getting the child used to interacting with his friends or even the teacher?
Yeah, so Klay, at Klay, we had different learning stations that are called, different learning centers that we call, and these are learning and doing stations. So we have math center, we have language and literacy center, we have discovery center, we have creative expression role play center. So when children move from one learning station to another, so there are wonderful activities that we have planned. The math center has shapes hunt, letter hunt, treasure hunt. And then we have the language and literacy, where the focus is on building vocabulary, helping them to communicate, helping them to interact with each other. And the groups are divided in such a way that it is a very homogeneous group which is very supportive of each other. So every group will have children who are at different learning paces, And these children in turn, because peer group is a great stimulator. Children learn by imitating each other, they learn by observing each other. So these are some of the things that children learn by doing, they learn by observing. And the facilitator is there to gently guide them and to teach them these newer skills in a very, very safe environment. For building vocabulary, for expansion of vocabulary, there is one game that at Klay centers we often play. We play, Simon Says. And Simon Says is something, that initially when children come to school, they are not very familiar with their, speaking in English and communicating in English. They are more at ease with their native language. So even with that, with actions, children are able to cross that barrier of language and interact with each other and pick up cues from each other. And suddenly, they start their listening skills, and they focus on their listening skills, and very soon they adapt to the common language with ease. Role play is another area where children feel very confident and comfortable, expressing their own version of a particular character, whether it is the hungry caterpillar or whether it is any other Julia Donaldson's books characters. So they find it very, very comfortable and safe to talk about these characters, to enact these characters, and to bring in the creativity and the communication piece into it. We also, our curriculum is very much aligned with the new education policy. So, that education policy also talks about 21st century skills, the creativity, the communication, the critical thinking, right? The confidence building, the character strengths. So, most of the activities that are a part of our daily lesson plan also have inbuilt, elements that focus on these values, enhancing these character strengths, where children, by learning to play, by learning to share, learning to care, learning to play fair, they are picking up all this in a very, very stimulating environment.
There's a very similar question, and it's a very interesting one, in fact. My baby is 2.6 years old and doesn't respond to his name. Will Clay be able to help him with this? And is this a common symptom among children who have been brought up during the lockdown?
So
Parvani, would you like to take that up?
Uh, well, yes, like Seema said, that that is bound to happen since children are not exposed to the environment. They haven't had enough stimulation. Uh, at Clay, we will have these kind of engagement opportunities for children. They'll be talking to each other, simple games like Simon says, and many more, which will initiate and like Seema said, it will help them to come out of their shell. Again, don't expect it to happen in a day. Children will take their own time, but looking at each other, that energy, those vibes, children automatically feel encouraged, and then they start repeating things. So they have the they have in the cubbies and all, there are name tags and things like that kept, so children are able to associate to that also. So like I said, it's a gradual process, and at Clay we will take it in a gradual manner and ensure that the child reaches that particular milestone.
What is the minimum age for enrolling children? So there's another parent who's asked that my baby is 1.6 years old. Is this the right age to put her in a play group? And also in this pandemic situation, would it be favorable to put her at such a young age in school?
yes, we take in children as young as 6 months in our daycare, and children who and this particular child, one 16-month-old child, is 1 year 4 months. So that child will be almost falling into the cusp of a toddler child, and of course. Once the parent feels confident and comfortable after visiting our centers, after going through all our safety protocols and all the care routine that we follow stringently with our children to ensure whether they are there for 2 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours, all their needs are taken care of. And, the child can definitely be enrolled. And the child will get to play with similar age group children, again, which is a limiting factor right now at home. The child will get to interact. All the resources, learning aids, all the language, all the communication is going to be very child friendly and interest specific. So it is a wonderful platform for children to come back and interact for a shorter duration or a longer duration, whatever the parents' convenience is.
There's a parent here who's asking, my child is 5.5 years old now, and due to the pandemic, she has been in lower KG. Uh, should this be a cause of concern in the coming years, since the age group is the cutoff is 6 years when you move on to class one? Parvani, would you like to help with this question?
Well, of most of the mainstream or K-12 schools I know of and we are aware of, it shouldn't be any hindrance because again, at the end of the day, they don't take children who are underage, but eventually the entire setup or the skill sets which will be required for your child to match up to a grade 1 or a grade 2 or the subsequent grades, that is what they the mainstream schools look at the same time. For the child also, it'll be of no concern because the child will be able to adapt in the school, having acquired the skills to adjust or adapt in a mainstream environment. So no, I don't think it should be a concern.
Here's a question on the school readiness program. Will the school readiness program prepare my child for writing or for a school interview or a school evaluation? Will Klay be coming up with some supporting material to cope with the lost learning years during the pandemic? Seema, I think you're
Yes.
the best person for this.
Yes, definitely. So, our school readiness program, like I shared earlier, is focusing on the physical, personal, social, and emotional development. And when a child is physically developed and when a child is socially ready, that means the child's large muscles and small muscles are ready. And when the pre writing skills are in place, when the pre writing readiness is in place, then the early literacy starts happening naturally. And then children move from pattern writing to, single alphabet writing to joining the alphabets and writing 2 letters and 3 letter words. So it is all about building the foundation. Once the foundation is there, it can be built on naturally. And what we do at in early years is to build on these foundation. So whether it is through sensorial activities, whether it is through play-doh, whether it is through eye hand coordination activity, whether it is building the large muscle or the small muscle, the pincer muscle, whether it is by scribbling with crayon, whether it is uh, exploring different art form and textures, everything focuses on building the pre-writing and pre-reading skill in children. So that should not be a worry at all, because this is what is required at this age. And once children are ready, they naturally adapt to writing. So it is a very natural progression. All that it needs is a little bit of foundation building, and that is what we do.
Couple of parents are asking on the right age. So my baby is 2.3 to 2.5 years old. I want to enroll my child for pre-KG. Is this the right age? How important is early education, and how should we start the process, and when should we start the process?
So uh, starting the process is something that is going to be totally your choice. When you feel ready as a parent, that is the right time to introduce children to a schooling environment and a preschool environment. Children are ready from the age of 6 months, right? They are looking for more opportunities to grow and play. They want to learn from dynamic environment. They are learning all the time. It is not that they are not learning at home, but an environment which is very child centric provides n number of opportunities for children to learn and grow in a safe and stimulating way, right? They get time to explore. Everything is very child friendly. Everything is at their level. The resources, the aids, the conversations, the adult interaction, everything is suited to their development in a very holistic manner. And it's a very, very focused development area where, everything is built onto, whether it is their routine care, whether it is their learning, whether it is their engagement, whether it is their interaction. So, the preschool environment as a setup, like I said earlier, forms that ecosystem where children can thrive and grow and learn. So, it is totally your choice as a parent, but do come and visit any of our centers and talk to the caregivers, talk to the center director, and please get a know-how of how things work and how we settle children. Because, like I said, the way we approach early childhood learning and early childhood growth is very different than what a formal school environment would do. So we take into account, we respect the child's need, we take cues from children, and we tread very slowly, building onto their confidence and building onto their trust, because once trust and confidence is there, there is no looking back. So, and as parents, we will want your support to help us navigate through this journey. So do try and visit us and know more about it, and whenever you are ready, you're most welcome to come back.
My child will be going to school for the very first time. Do you think parents need to stick around for those initial few days while the child is settling in, or, a lot of anxious parents out here?
I can understand, and I can understand that this is the first time that children and parents will be parted from each other. But yes, our settling in process has been thought very stringently, and we have worked out all the finer details to ensure that children settle in comfortably. Due to the situation right now, in terms of keeping in mind the post-COVID situation and a sense of safety, our protocols have become very, very stringent. We will not be able to welcome parents into the classroom or at the reception area. But yes, parents can be in and around, where we can call them, and they can, in case a child is not settled, or in case a child incessantly cries for more than half an hour or 40 minutes, we will definitely call you. But are settling in, and that is why we have extended our settling in from 1 week to 2 weeks, because we know okay, these are different times, these are trying times, unprecedented. So this kind of thing has never happened where children have been confined to their homes. So we do understand the need, and we give them time. So it is very much possible, and we speak with confidence and experience, that children will settle in comfortably and faster. But there could be a child who'll surprise us and take a little bit of time to settle. That's all right. Every child has their own need, every child requires their own time and space, and we are willing to do that. We are willing to work with them, and we are very happy settling them at their own pace. We are not going to be pushing children, we are not going to be force feeding them, we are just going to encourage them to embrace the new environments. So this is how we want to, this is what we have planned. And our settling in process is there at our centers. So you can go through that in detail, try and understand, how much of your involvement we are looking at and what all we have planned. If you have any questions, our team is always there to help them address it for you.
Parvani, I'd like to ask you this next question. My child is 16 months old. She's a fussy eater. Should we focus on getting her eating habits sorted first before we enroll her into Klay, or will this automatically be sorted once she's enrolled?
Well, I understand that this can be a cause of concern to parents, but once the child is at play in the setting with other children, it's a joy to see them pick up their lunch boxes, open it, get help from the teachers and the nannies, and as they sit to eat together, automatically children are feel encouraged. And like we've been saying that children are imitators, they're copycats. When they see other children getting into that activity of having their food, children tend to look and then acquire that habit also. So I would give it time, allow your child to probably maybe your child might take a few number of days to get into that habit, but your child will eventually get there. Another thing we suggest at Klay is that, it's a good idea to give children snacks which they like to eat, finger foods, which will again, this is kind of a trigger for them to pick up their lunch boxes and start eating. So yes, be rest assured, it will be well taken care with us.
How important is early years education? My child is 2.5 years old. How do I start schooling for my child? Seema?
So early years, how important is early years education? So early years education is as important as early years nurturing. If I would say in a very plain and simple terms, early years education is actually very focused on the nurturing and development of children. Now, that development has cognitive, has personal, social, emotional, has executive functions. Everything goes into that development. So, as early years educators, we have a research backed pedagogy to help address the need in children and to ensure that they get optimal opportunity to thrive and grow into in a very safe environment. So it is as simple as when we ask children to climb ladder, or when we ask children to ride a bicycle, we always give them supporters right in the beginning when they are riding the bicycle. Only when they are comfortable and confident do we take away the supporters so that they are ready to bicycle. If a child wants to climb a ladder, we will never encourage the child to miss the first step and move on to the second. So there is a progression, there is a structure and flow to it. So early years education is like that routine for children, where children learn slowly and slowly the building blocks for achieving a very happy, successful, and confident life ahead.
May I just add to this little one thing? I just want to add to what
Sure.
Seema is saying, that we've all seen the Born Vita ad, which says the first 5 years are most essential for brain development, right? So it is actually true, because like they say that the brain is developing, there are neurons, there are connections that are getting formed in the brain at this age, at this time, and this development is taking place day by day. So the connections which are formed are so rapid that the first 1,000 days of your child's life, the kind of stimulation your child will get, the kind of social emotional security bonding, that kind of a sphere which your child will be into will enhance those connections that are being formed in the brain. And as importantly, this will be the skill sets, the acquisition of those skill sets which will form the basis of lifelong learning. So early years education is as important, as vital as how like Seema said, how you think of food for your child. You, for the physical development, you want your child to have the proper nutrients, the vitamins, and a combination of that. In a similar way, for the brain development for your child, and to for your child to be able to grow as and as an individual, to thrive in an environment, early years is crucial, I would say. So don't undermine the importance of this, and ensure that you are focusing on it as much as you focus for the other areas of your child's development.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, the very first 2,000 years, 2,000 days, like you mentioned, are absolutely crucial in a child's life. We have a question on daycare. Does Klay also provide daycare facilities for a 6-year-old child? This is after school. What do the children do in your after school daycare?
Yeah, so children come in from their formal schools, and then there is a routine of their meal times or whatever snack, whatever, depending on what time they come. And then there are extracurricular activities that we focus on, activities that are not so much part of the academic learning, but other aspects of learning. So there is story time, there is music and movement, there are one or two, other engaging creative art and craft activity. And sometimes if children are independent enough to complete their assignments that have been given to them, so they are encouraged to do that as well. So it'll all depend how much time the child spends in the after school, depending on the time that the child reaches the daycare. So and of course the peer group interaction happens, because there are all other children of a similar age group. And then there is storybook reading. There are board games for children, exciting board games that they can individually play or indulge in a group activity.
How difficult would it be for children to continue into a K-12 school after preschool with Klay? Does Klay have any tie-ups with mainstream school for admissions if the parent enrolls the child in Klay till the age of 6?
So like I said, preschools are the building blocks for children, right? Building on to their foundation. So once the foundation is very strong, everything, the natural steps, progressive steps become very easy. It is when you know how to swim, it becomes easier to wade into deeper waters, right? Because you know how to swim. So that is what we teach children, and to navigate through all the challenges and to navigate through all the learning, because the foundation building happens here. So if you ask our perspective, it is not a challenge at all. In fact, children adapt very well when they go from a preschool environment, because the foundational skills are already there. Yes, we do not, our children get into all good schools of their neighborhood. And this has happened across Pan India. So, our website talks about the names of the reputed schools that our children have got into. I would urge all of you to probably have a look at our website, where Pan India, across metros, we have given the names of schools where our children have gotten, and they have gotten on their own merit. And each one of them has succeeded, and we have had no challenges getting having our children move into the formal school. We do not have any formal tie-ups, but our children are welcomed in all such schools. Clay being the brand, that is the reputed brand and the quality brand. When people they are quite embracing of the fact that children are coming from a Clay environment and Clay family, and their confidence and the other aspects that a child is looking for in a school, in a formal school admission, all that they see in our children, and our children are able to get through.
I think we've almost run out of time. Thank you so much, Seema and Parvani, for joining us this evening. It was a really enlightening session, and I'm sure you've answered most of the questions of our parents. For those of you who missed the session, a recording of this will be available on YouTube and on Facebook. We will be having more such sessions in our back to school series over the next 1 or 2 months. So stay tuned for those. And until we meet again, take care and stay safe and have a great weekend ahead.